Hi, everyone. Nick and Marco here. Today, we're going to talk to you about the film that Marco has produced, the Mystique documentary, Standing on the Firing Line, the story of Mystique. So, before we get into this, it's fun behind the scenes information for you. I want to let you know where you can go and when. On Friday, the 16th of September at 7:30 p.m. at the Westdale, which is a theater in Hamilton on King Street West. It's 1014 King Street West. You can come see the premiere of the Mystique documentary, Standing on the Firing Line. So I hope we will see you there. And without any further ado, we're going to get into some fun behind the scenes information. Marco, why don't you tell us a little bit about the film, what inspired you to make it, and maybe what your personal connection is to Mystique, the band?
Yeah, my name's Marco. I directed and produced the documentary, and Nick here also helped work on the documentary, helped in a variety of different capacities. So this whole thing came about, we started talking about it in 2017. My connection is I'm related to the vocalist of the band, Ray. He's my uncle. And growing up, I was interested in the music. I discovered it, and I was a fan of like hard rock and heavy metal, and I became a fan of the music of Mystique. And I ended up actually getting into some trading circles. I kind of was going online in the early days and like finding people that were interested in Mystique music and trading tapes with them and stuff like this. I wasn't, the vinyls, the Mystique vinyls. I have the album here. This is Mystique. Shut my blur off, but they put out this vinyl. This is a sealed copy of it, Black Rider in 1985. And the first time that I heard this, I fell in love with the music right away. And I started going online. And back then, in the early 2000s, there was like no information about this band and this album. So that's when I started connecting with folks online who, had like vinyl want lists and stuff like this. And I would send them messages. And I had this tape set up where I would duplicate tapes of the music and send them to people. Sometimes they'd send me stuff back. So that was kind of cool. So I've always been interested in the film, and in the band, and always trying to discover information about it. So basically, even back then, actually, I reached out. Martin Popoff is in the film. Even back then, I reached out to Martin Popoff, asking him questions and stuff like this. The early 2000, 2001, 2002. So I've always kind of been looking for information about the band, even beyond what my uncle would tell me about it. And this whole documentary came about because the guys in the band, Ray and John, John is the co-founder of Mystique. Ray is the co-founder of Mystique. They're the ones that were on every release and things like this. They put out a 30th anniversary a handful of years ago of the Black Rider with some of the other material that they recorded. And that kind of, I think, was the real catalyst of the discussions, and let's try to do something with this. Had that not happened, we probably wouldn't be talking about this. And then it kind of took a little bit of time to set things in place, but the movie really came about because of my passion for the music, Hamilton music history, film. Like I love film, and the fact that they kind of were already doing things on their own. It just seemed like a good time to work on this documentary, for sure.
Awesome. So, you mentioned record collecting and those groups, and hopefully this isn't a spoiler for the film. But do you want to talk about, because I know there's a little bit more to that particular element of what makes the Mystique story kind of special. Did you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, so that was basically one of the big things that we were trying to uncover in the documentary, in the film. One of the big themes was, this band had put out this album, this record in the 80s, and they were an independent band. They had some record label interest, which we go into the movie, but I guess they didn't make it, right? So years later, though, after the band had already dissolved, like all of a sudden there was interest online for this. Maybe not all of a sudden. I think it took some time and and grew a little bit, but there was interest for the record. In fact, even the record was put in this book here. Martin Popoff, who we interviewed in the film, included the record in here. It started here. This book came out in the 90s. There's the album there. And it started gaining some steam with collectors, and collectors started paying money for it. Here's another book that Martin wrote, and he did a review of the album in here. He gave it a 9 out of 10, so that's a pretty big rating. So he liked the music a lot. But they had other releases too, like the I Am the King cassette, and they also had this 45. And everything that they recorded sells online for quite a bit of money. So it's very collectible. So that was one of the interesting topics of the film that we were trying to uncover as well. That's why we interviewed Martin Popoff. In fact, I'll show a clip. We'll show a clip here with some raw footage of the interview we did with Martin, talking about maybe record collecting in general and stuff like this. So that'll be interesting for the viewers at home. And basically, we were just trying to uncover like the story about the band, the story about the album, which there was not a lot of information about online, and how and why it became collectible. So I'm going to show this clip right now, and then we'll see you folks in just a minute.
It's very interesting, the value of Mystique Black Rider. I mean, we know it is actually valuable on EP. I mean, to own one of those originals, if the price has been steadily going up, as has been researched, it has been doing that, and it's worth, $800 or something now. So that original artifact is always going to be an original artifact, and it's always going to be worth a lot, even whether they simply reissue it as a 5-track EP on vinyl again and it's available all over the place. That there is a big debate on whether something like that hurts the value of the original, and probably the answer is a little bit, but not much. Just in the same way that I'm sure you could go on YouTube and play the entire Mystique Black Rider EP. So technically anybody who wants to hear that thing can go hear it for free. But the original artifact will always be the original artifact, and it will always be worth something. I don't know if there's a history of that EP ever being bootlegged, because a lot of these super rarities, if they're rare enough, like the Iron Maiden Soundhouse tapes, for example, like that's a huge, important, legendary thing. Well, it was important enough to be bootlegged a few times. So there are fake copies of that thing out there, right? So I don't even know if that's the case with Mystique. I've never heard that. So the original EP, it's probably the main, and they're likely all authentic. All the Mystique Black Rider EPs that are out there.
All right, so that was Martin Popoff. That was the genesis of the Contrarians. Nic and I started a show with Martin subsequent to this, because of that interview. But I want to throw it over to Nic now and just ask you, like, what are some of your memories of the production of the film? And that was our first shoot, was in 2018 when we went to go meet Martin. And subsequently, we've had other interviews like Lee and Hamilton and stuff like this. So, like, what are some of your memories of the production and doing the shoots and some of the folks we've met along the way?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I guess, probably the strongest memory is the first time with Martin, just the spectacular amount of merch and collectibles and records that just plaster his office. That was pretty magical, and I don't think that memory will ever go anywhere. All the shoots sort of had this theme of maybe forgive the pun. There was a mystique to this story of Mystique. It felt like we were uncovering sort of a hidden treasure, like archaeological dig site type deal. It was very interesting. Really, like you said, the impetus of the story was just kind of why is this band that never quite made it, that almost made it, what makes them so special that people are willing to pay $600, $700, $800 or more for a piece of history. Why is that? And what we found as we went was there's a really interesting story here. There's a lot of drama, that we uncovered. There was a lot of um, struggle, right? The story of a band flying over to France, and only being able to afford bread to eat while they're trying to record a major studio album. Like that's quite inspiring. And I've always been a big fan. Standing on the firing line as a title, like that sort of stuff appeals to me. The last stand, the when you're going to be defeated, but you keep going anyway. That's a real type of bravery that I think we sort of unearthed and honored that story. And I think we just discovered there's a full story here of there's loss. There's some heavy stuff in here. I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a particular interview, and I think once if you've seen the film, you will know the one I'm talking about. That is very emotional and is very moving, and it really just goes to show you how special this band was and how special this story is. Yeah, in terms of specific memories, I don't have a lot. It's a long time we did this. There's some standout particular ones, like meeting Martin and seeing all the memorabilia, or meeting Crash and that interview. Crash is a fun character, very very charismatic and boisterous, but overall it was the story, I think, that sticks with me, and hopefully it sticks with all of you at home as well. So do you feel like by the end of this film you've gotten to the core and the reason for the resurgence in Mystique's popularity as a traders and collectors band? And do you think that maybe this story is going to have a little bit of a long lasting impact and bring new people into the Mystique fold?
I think that, like there's, I'll never like fully, or we will never fully uncover why maybe something is valuable to certain people. But I think some of the like initial building blocks of like, the band had talent, Ray and John were both workaholics. They were both really pushing to see this thing go off. And it was because of both of their dedication that they ended up in the studio, not once, but like 3-4 times even. And a lot of bands, local bands from the time period, a lot of them don't have recordings, unfortunately. Like they might have demo tapes that they recorded, but like a lot of them don't have official releases and things like this. And it's an unfortunate in a lot of ways, because like Lee, we met Lee in Hamilton. He had a music store and a record studio and stuff, a rehearsal studio, and he did soundboard recordings and stuff like this. He basically said it's because of the fact that they were able to record things and put stuff out that we're talking about them now, because we wouldn't be. Now, I'm subjective about it, or I'm biased about it, but I mean, like, there's a lot of people around the world. Martin reviewed the album, the first EP, positively. There's people around the world that want to collect it. If the music wasn't any good, it probably wouldn't be worth a lot of money, no matter how rare it is. So I think rarity comes into play. The fact that they all had talent, but like they were doing stuff that was very impressive. The type of guitar playing with the rhythm keyboards, and John's drumming on like tracks like Wake Up Screaming, and Mark Arbor, who filled in for Billy Sheehan in Talus at one point, from what I understand. I've heard that. And Ray with his, he used to take opera lessons, and John's mom used to wake him up at 7 a.m. to, like, if you're going to be a drummer, then you need to work like it's a job, and he would get up at 7 a.m. and practice the drums all day. And the other guys, Vic in the film talks about playing keyboards for 3 hours a day. Like these guys were dedicated. They were rehearsing. And I'll play a little clip right now of Lee. He owned the rehearsal studio back in the day, and he talks about their rehearsal and their work ethic. So this will kind of show you what their work ethic was to improve their talent and their ability to play. So let me play this clip for you right now, and we'll see you in a second.
But that's one of the reasons I knew they were more serious, because a lot of other people, they'd come in and practice maybe once a week for a couple hours, and that was it. Or if they had a gig coming up, then they'd come in to practice. These guys were practicing even if they had no gigs. You know, they were, and that's kind of like the school I came from. We practiced and practiced and practiced. It wasn't a chore, you know. Like if you like playing music, whether you're playing it in front of people or you're just playing it amongst yourselves, like it's not a chore. It's enjoyable, you know. So, and that's like how you can tell when you start seeing people like that. So.
All right, Lee. So Lee was another one of the standout interviews. So much experience and history in that music scene. So, you know, we could have gotten maybe a whole film just from what Lee said. Are there any other interviews that really stuck out to you, or is there anything in particular, you know, a fun story that Lee talked about maybe that didn't make the cut that you enjoyed?
Oh, Lee, yeah, Lee was incredible. I mean, we shot for almost 3 hours just with Lee. So there's like 2.5+ hours of footage of Lee's interviews, and he was around the Hamilton music scene for a long time, and he played in bands on his own. In like I think the late '60s was when he started, and he played up until the late '70s. So for 10 years he was playing in bands in the Hamilton area, and then he ended up opening up his own store and music studio, like rehearsal studio and music store. And a lot of bands came through his place, and just the level of knowledge of the local scene and the bands and the players and from that time period was incredible. And I would love to do something even just with Lee and Lee's history, some kind of like documentary project or something like this, because I think he's got a lot of information, and his basement was like a museum of Hamilton music history. Like he had boxes full of, because people would come through his store and his rehearsal studio to rehearse. He would set up soundboards for folks to record demos and live off the floor rehearsal stuff. He had tons of tapes. Unfortunately, he would re-record over them, and eventually like he no longer has like any of those tapes, but it's a shame that he didn't keep a single one for every person, because he would have a library of Hamilton music history of audio. But as it is, I mean, if you go in his basement, he's got like posters and flyers on the wall for all kinds of like local Hamilton bands, including Mystique. He had a big color Mystique poster. He had a Mystique 8x10. He had the Mystique button on the wall, which is the first time I saw the button, which I actually have one now. But that was the first time I saw it. He had a Mystique button on the wall, and he had flyers and posters. He had boxes full of this stuff. So that was incredible. Just going to his place, and I'm kind of bugging him a little bit to let me come in there and document this stuff, just to scan it and archive it, because like, you know, once he's gone, it's gone. Like what's going to happen to it, right? And it's all there sitting in one spot. It's like a gold mine. If anybody's interested in local Hamilton music history, like his basement's like a museum. So that was a really interesting interview that we did. And one of the things that I enjoyed about the documentary was, of course, I grew up with Ray, but one of the things I enjoyed was getting to know the other members of the band who I didn't grow up with. So getting to meet Vic, who played keyboards on the first release, meeting him, doing an interview with him. That interview was incredible. Getting to meet Ian, who played bass on the 45 and the final recordings, which were never released, like getting to meet him. And then through him, I met Carl, who played guitar on the final recordings. And then he actually had some of the, you know, unfinished and like unmixed tracks that they were recording at the end. So that's the last that exists of that recording session. So Vic, Ian, and then getting to meet John, because growing up, Ray had always told me about Mystique and how, you know, it was, everybody had talent. Dave Dragos, Mark Arbor, Les Wheeler, like they all had talent. They all came into the band and they had something to contribute. Eric Nicholas from France, who's an incredible guitar player. They all had talent, but the vision was Ray and John's, and I think they worked really hard to make this thing go off. So always hearing about how, yeah, Mystique was me and John, or Mystique was, you know, from Ray's point of view, like, you know, me and John were always pushing Mystique, and John was this and John was that. And, you know what I mean, hearing the stories about him and actually getting to meet him and build a relationship with him, with John, and getting that other piece of the puzzle. And now working on this documentary with the two of them and all the help that Ray and John have given to me, and I've learned a lot from both of them. So all of the interviews were incredible, and getting to meet the band members were awesome. Getting to see Hamilton music history was amazing, and you know, working on a project with the two of them, it has been a lot of fun.
Awesome. So I'm gonna play dumb here for a second. So you must have had some sort of large financial backing or a full production crew behind you to make this happen, right?
No, so this what I love about the film is that it's actually very reflective of Mystique at the time with Black Rider. So they were an independent band. This is an independent film. They didn't have a huge budget. They had Ted Smirnios. He was a musician who started getting interested in more of the production side and more of like the behind the scenes stuff with music and bands. And he fell in love with the band and he really wanted to push them. And he was interested. He got the money together and he was just a kid himself at the time. But his drive and ambition, like he got the money together. He found recording studio. Like he basically helped with a lot of this stuff. And it was because of his support that they were able to put out that first EP, but very limited production value and stuff like this. And that's like this film, like we have like no budget here. But it's turned out really well. Like there's so many images and footage and interviews and interesting things that like it doesn't feel like it's a bare bones kind of just talking heads thing. There's a lot going on in the film, and we did our best. Like I tried to surround myself with folks that knew what they were doing. So Aaron, my director of photography, he has a bachelor's in film and television, and he helped bring his expertise to the film. And I think the film looks really well done. And then you, with your audio background, like you went to Metalworks and stuff like this, you were able to help in certain aspects with that kind of stuff. And that's something I want to ask you about too. But yeah, this was just purely a passion project, but I think we uncovered some really cool stuff, and there's some really cool stories in the documentary. And I think if you're a fan of the band, or you're a fan of bands in this type of genre, or you're a fan of like documentaries about independent music and things like this, I think you'll find something to enjoy about the film. But in terms of your experience, like how did you feel coming with your audio background? I mean, I gave you access to some like really rare recordings, live stuff, demo stuff that has never been released, and you did a lot of the audio transferring from the physical tapes to digital and things like this. And like, what were your feelings and memories surrounding that? You did some of the mixing on some of the songs that are in the film.
Yeah, I mean, it was a learning experience. When we started 5 years ago, I'd only been out of school, I think, a few years, and was not working in the field. So there was definitely a learning curve. But it was fun to be resourceful, you know. There are like we didn't have a budget for lavaliers or a nice shotgun mic or any sort of pro recording equipment. So we had to sort of scrounge and find what we could get. I work in AV now, so when there was a free microphone, you know, at the shop that I could borrow, I tried to borrow that. When we couldn't, we did our best. And yeah, the audio restoration was a fun challenge. You know, it's like everything else with this film. Would have been great to have you know, unlimited time and a lot of professional equipment, but we had to sort of do our best with what we had, which meant being scrappy and resourceful. And yeah, I think there's lots of things I wish I could have, you know, done more on or had access to better gear, but I'm pretty happy with what we were able to achieve. And I think when you look at what we were able to achieve versus what we had to work with, I think it's a pretty impressive accomplishment. And yeah, I hopefully all you at home agree, and if not, I'm sure we'll find out. But yeah, it was a really eye-opening experience too of how difficult it must have been for the band Mystique to actually achieve what they achieved back when there's no internet, there's no you know, there's no digital audio workstations, there's no plugins, everything has to be outboard gear, everything has to be bought, right? There's no hard drives with terabytes of space. You're recording on a tape, you know, you have to pay for that tape, you have to, mistakes matter now, right? Like it was eye-opening, and it sort of helped give perspective to why this is so why Mystique is such a special part and of Hamilton's music history, and shouldn't be forgotten, because it was hard for us and it must have been harder for them. So yeah, it was a great learning experience, and not something I'd trade for the world. So speaking of sound, music is a type of sound. And Mystique, coincidentally enough, is a band that produces music. So what is your favorite Mystique song?
My favorite song, it's tough because there's a lot of Mystiques, and I'm really biased. Like I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm really biased about the band and about the music, but there's a lot of favorites. I think they put out, the style of music that they're playing is some of my favorite styles of music. Like I'm into hard rock, I'm into metal, progressive metal, and I learned about progressive metal because of Mystique in my teenage years and stuff like this. But probably, like I'm a big fan of Memories. I really like I Am the King. But I would probably say the one that edges them out, I think, is the song No Return, which was going to be the title of the film. It was actually Martin who suggested maybe making it something a little bit more elaborate rather than just No Return. And he was the one who actually suggested Standing on the Firing Line, which is an incredible tune too, off of the I Am the King recording. But I would say probably No Return. And I think there's a lot of stuff going on in that song. That one's progressive. The lyrics are incredible. If you read the lyrics, the fantasy based lyrics in that one are amazing. They talk about like the Holocaust of time and the Reaper's demise and stuff like this. Like there's some really cool stuff in there. That's probably my favorite. I'll play some of that song right now so you can hear the level of the musicianship of the band. So let me throw this song on for you folks at home, and you can just hear a clip of it, and we'll be right back. Man. Hey, thanks for joining us, everyone. We've been joined by the director of photography, Aaron Lebel. He's got a background in film and television. He has a bachelor's in film and television, and he's worked on a bunch of different projects. And he was the one who helped set up the shots and things like this. And welcome, Aaron. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, Marco?
Good. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. So Nic and I have been chatting about the film, about some of the production and stuff like this. We've kind of been going back and forth on a few things. But since you're here, like, what are some of your memories of the production and the shoot, and what did you learn from everything?
That's a very good question. Thank you for asking, Marco. Honestly, I just kind of, some of the fondest memories is just going out and having a good time shooting. It was really nice to kind of shoot the documentary with some of my friends and everything, and it wasn't like for work purposes or anything, so it wasn't entirely super stressful. So it was nice coordinating all that stuff kind of together, and it was a lot of fun. And some of the stuff I've learned kind of mostly as kind of like a young filmmaker throughout the whole process is like dealing with the subject matter, like the subjects and setting up interesting shots, because there are definitely some shots in the movie where it could have been better and it could have been better done. And dealing with some of the subjects, they were very specific. They were like, we want this to look professional, so we don't want like your iPhones or anything. Like we want a big camera. And it's funny because, like, as a filmmaker nowadays, iPhones, like my phone right now, it probably shoots just as good as like my $2,000 Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera we got like halfway through production. And I'm pretty sure your iPhone, Marco, can also shoot way better than the camera we ended up using. So it was like a 50-50 of dealing with the subject matter and what their desires were for the project and trying to kind of accommodate it and everything. It's definitely a learning experience, and there was definitely some stuff I in my role of director of photography would do differently in hindsight, but honestly it was a great learning opportunity. It was a great experience, and we ended up learning some really cool things into this deep dive of Mystique that honestly, if we didn't do that, a lot of these like little things about the band would still be unearthed, you know?
Yeah, exactly. There were so many things that how exciting. I remember how exciting it was for me. Every time I would uncover something or come across something exciting, I would call both of you guys or text you guys and be like, "Oh my God, I just discovered this," or "I just wait till you see this," you know, like so. There was a lot of stuff like that going on.
Yeah, a lot of those stuff would be unearthed, and or sorry, a lot of that stuff wouldn't be unearthed, and yeah, without us kind of digging, a lot of those really cool things wouldn't have been unearthed, and a lot of those like really cool moments later in the movie, yeah, like some of those really cool like secrets and big reveals, like if we hadn't have done our digging or if Marco hadn't done his digging, like that stuff probably would have been lost to time at the end of the day. So it was a really cool job of like cataloging that.
Yeah, and I remember even, at least for me, I don't know about the two of you, when we did that first shoot in Martin's office, like I remember just walking out of there like feeling like I was on top of the world. Like that was exciting, like, and I remember thinking like, holy smokes, like we got something here, like I was thinking if every interview could like match up to this, we'd have something amazing. And I think we've pretty much hit that. I think we do have something really interesting.
Yeah, that first interview with Martin that we ended up doing, like, yeah, we knocked it out of the park. The shots looked really good, and we ended up talking with Martin for a pretty good amount of time.
Yeah, that was the one thing I remember leading into it. I remember Martin was like, well, like I know the band's music and stuff like this. And I sent him the 30th anniversary and he wrote about Mystique in a couple of his books, but he's like, I don't know that much about the band. Like, I don't know. You have to be very specific with your questions. Like, I don't know how long I can go. And then we showed up, and because of the research and background and the questions that I had, like we ended up shooting for like an hour and 45 minutes. And I think he was surprised and impressed at that at the end of it, he was like, wow, like I talked way more than I thought I was going to. And the fact that I learned a lot from talking to him about the band. And like, I probably know more about Mystique than anybody on the planet. And like, I walked away thinking like, wow, like I've actually learned more than I knew going in. So that was incredible.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's definitely a really cool learning experience. And it's super exciting right now to see it kind of like all come together,
and play in a theater. So we've been, Nic and I have been talking for a while now. We're basically going to wrap it up. I don't know if you have any final thoughts, Aaron, before we wrap up.
No, I other than it was like a very fun experience to kind of like be a part of. It was a lot of fun to film and to kind of catalog this band's kind of like journey and where they've come and where they've went to. It's a piece of Hamilton history that should be remembered, and clearly the music is still resonating with a lot of people quite deeply.
Any final thoughts, Nic?
No, I think you guys surmised it perfectly. But yeah, I mean, I do want to say thank you, Marco, for letting me be a part of it, and thanks to everyone who's watching this right now, and encourage you all to go to the premiere and watch the film for yourselves.
All right. Yeah. So basically the film, it is at local Hamilton, Ontario film premiere. But I mean, if anybody lives in Ontario, in Toronto, in the Southern Ontario area, if anybody lives in like the Northern States area is interested in this type of thing, I mean, come out and support. The tickets are available on eventbrite.ca. The link will be in the description. Also, we will have some merchandise there. So here's the official t-shirt we're going to be selling at the premiere. So it's the first time this is being revealed. So that's the premiere t-shirt. We're going to be selling those there. The band members are going to be there. We're going to have some other merchandise there. Martin Popoff will be there to do an introduction. So it's going to be more than just a screening. It's going to be like a premiere event. So if anybody's in the area or interested at all, it would be awesome for you to support this project, because I mean, this is going to encourage other projects in a similar vein, bands like Mystique or other projects of, local Hamilton or music history in general. So I think that this is a really interesting project, and I hope these guys are going to be there, and I'm looking forward to the premiere. This was a lot of work, and I'm excited about it. And thanks everybody for checking this out. Hopefully, this was a little informative, and I'm just going to end off with the Mystique trailer for the film. So if you're interested, here's the little trailer that we have up on YouTube right now. And good night, and we'll see y'all later.
Man, like these guys, like they were like ahead of their time.
We knew what we were shooting for, and we were going straight for it, and nothing was going to get in the way.
I'm surprised at how far this EP has gone.
It might have been great for somebody because we still sell those records.
It's a story essentially about being this cool, early, proto-nascent, epic fantasy power metal band.
Even if we had put out that record, I don't know, we probably would have had to reinvent ourselves again.
Nobody's ever going to hear of Mystique ever again. He's going to be lost to history.
You know you got to wake up.